What is the right brain?
It's the right side of your brain.
Put it in a bad spot.
Right smack dab in the middle.
Well, I mean, it's just a hobby.
What does that even mean? Welcome back to another episode of the Light Movement Show. So in this episode, we're gonna be talking all about the different qualities that every artist should have. And so we're gonna break those up into the skills that artists should have and the attributes that artists should have. We're gonna be talking about the skills first, and I'm super excited about this topic because I think it's just something that every artist needs to hear if they want to be successful. And I'm super excited about this topic because it's something that I wish I would have heard when I first started as an artist. If you are interested in growing as an artist, make sure you like and subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. Let's first start with the different skills that every artist needs to have. So the first skill that every artist should have is they need to learn how to see like an artist. So what does that even mean?
Yeah, that sounds kind of daunting. Like,
yeah.
If I could only see like an artist.
And it also feels like some people are like born with that
Right.
and other people aren't.
Right.
What are your guys' thoughts on that?
And there's a lot of collectors that also, or people who aren't artists, they think that artists see this special way and they don't see that way.
I think artists do see differently, but they learned it. I don't think you're born with that. I always go back to John, my husband, who's complete artist mind. Like he's...
And someday we should
stereotypical
do a podcast
artist mind, yeah.
with the four of us with him.
Yeah, or he can replace me or something.
You don't want to do it with him.
He is very, very, very right-brained, and even he wasn't born seeing like an artist.
Even though he could draw in perspective at like 4.
Yeah, I think in his mind he can see it, but he couldn't see out there and then
Translate it.
Yeah. Even to this day, I might be slightly better than him at that. You know, he's very good at seeing it in his mind, but I think seeing like an artist, and what that means is seeing the world, form, light, color, composition, those types of things, seeing the world and being able to break it down into the elements of art and translate that onto a 2D surface or 3D, you know, if you're a sculptor or something like that, or music or anything. So being able to perceive the world in terms of form, light, color, all those things. And I think that takes skill. I think that takes time to develop. I don't think you're born with that.
Yeah, I actually remember the specific moment in the mastery program after the small scale realism class when I felt like, oh my gosh, I can like zoom in with my eyes and see so much more. Like it was like that specific lesson like unlocked a dormant ability that was already within me, you know, and that everyone has, I think.
Yeah.
It was like after that specific lesson, you know, zooming in, and I did this painting of a rose that was frozen, you know, in the ice cube. Seeing all the fine details in there from, you know, the different shades of ice to the little tiny bubbles in there and the small cracks within the ice, you know, it was the practice itself is what allowed me to see that, you know, and start to see the colors. And there was another point when I started to be able to see all the different shades and the colors, and even just looking at like trees and leaves and stuff outside, you see way more than just green, you know, it's definitely a skill.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like seeing like an artist really goes into the next point that we have. Well, I don't know if it's second, but it's in that list, which is being able to really use your right brain easily and like access that part of your brain really quickly, because in order to see like an artist, you have to be in your right brain. And it's making that switch out of like the left brain analytical and seeing things like how we're told to see things, and then actually seeing things for what they are. And that's your right brain. Like you have to just get rid of the voice in your head that's telling you how to see.
It is impossible to create good art without your right brain. Being able to access, utilize, muscle up your right brain and go into that zone. I am very left brain. I'm very analytical, you know, wordy. I like words. I'm conscious of time all the time. I'm future oriented. So very, very left brain, and it's hard for me to be in the moment and really get into my right brain. Doesn't come natural to me, and I've had to like will myself to that. I've had to exercise it and build it up, and So I know that firsthand, that you can't make really good art with your left brain.
For people who don't know, what is the right brain? Because we're sort of assuming that everyone knows what that means, but like for someone who is watching this and is like, I have no clue what the right brain is,
Like,
or
what
who's
is it-
listening.
Like, what's it feel like?
Yeah, well, what is it?
Well, it's the right side of your brain.
I know, but like you say left brain and right brain,
Well,
but
left
like,
brain, so left brain is, you know, anything.
that was a very left brain answer.
Well, your brain's divided, and it's that part of the brain that's, anyways, you can.
Yeah, so left brain is like very, wherever words are, so language and words are all a part of left brain. Anything that's like precept on precept, like this amounts to that, and that
Like
linear
logical.
thought, logical, linear thought, time, sequences, math. And then your right side of the brain is intuition, abstraction.
Problem solving, non-linearly.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
I don't know.
I feel like you can do all those left brain things in combination. Like, the best place to be is to use both of the sides of your brain like equally, or like working together in unison. I feel like that's how you can really be a great artist and really be good at just life.
The skill of being able to like see, like on Dimitra's face now, to be able to see the highlight on this side of her cheek and the shape that that is, and then be able to look at that shape and then replicate that shape on a paper and sort of extrapolate form, right, is a very right brain activity.
Because you're feeling it. But like, how does the right brain feel? I think we have to describe that.
Well, you lose track of time. It's very soothing and peaceful. It's very positive. It is not self-focused. It's almost like you lose the concept of self in a way. It's very connecting, like all things connect. You're in the present time, you're not in the past. That's where artists mess up in getting out of their right brain. They might be temporarily in their right brain while they're painting, but as soon as that voice charges up and says, oh, this isn't looking good. Remember that last painting you did in the past that you screwed up and it was so ugly, and it's sitting in your closet and you don't even know how to fix it? Yeah, and so the past comes up, and then you start dwelling in the past, thinking about the past failures, what somebody said to you, whatever. Or the future. I won't be able to pull this off. It's gonna come out ugly. Everybody's gonna laugh at me. My dreams of becoming an artist are not gonna come to fruition. That's future. So either place is dangerous. Right brain is only in the moment. It lives in that brushstroke. You know, it lives in, I'm mixing this paint. It doesn't even live 1 second from now of, I'm mixing this brush. I wonder if that'll look good on there. You can't even be that far in the future. It's literally the very moment you're in. And it's soothing. Once you get there, you let go of everything. And that's why it's addictive, I think, because it feels so good just to live in the moment.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, that's why people like to create art, I think, without knowing it. You know, it's like, it's the action and the peace that comes from it.
I think it's very playful. As a kid, you probably spend most of your life in your right brain.
Right.
And that's why it's like this innocent feeling. Like, there's no wrong that's happening. You can just be yourself. So I think that's also why it's addicting.
And I think it's so important to like distinguish that this is a skill. Like, it's something that you can increase and get better at. And like you said, muscle up and work out and learn how to, you know, get into the right brain more often and quicker. So
when I first started teaching, I could not traverse left brain, right brain, because to teach and to speak and to, when you're demonstrating and painting and say, okay, I'm laying in the dark tones now with transparent paint, and I'm getting Galkid and I'm applying that to my transparent paint, or whatever you're teaching, in order to make sense and have your words like, you know, actually make sense and to speak smoothly without, you know, that whole thing, it's a left brain thing.
yeah.
But to paint and look at your source and see the form and is a right brain thing. So when I first started teaching, I either painted badly or I couldn't talk. I could not do both. And if I was talking for a while and making a lot of sense, then when I would go to paint, it was hard for me. I couldn't paint. Over the years through teaching, I've had to go in and out of left brain, right brain, left brain, right brain. I feel like that's a skill I've picked up too. So it's definitely a skill, because I used to be solid left brainer and now I feel like I'm very even.
So speaking of sort of unconventional skills, because I feel like all these are sort of like not the typical skills that you would see if you Googled, you know, what are the skills that I need to have as an artist?
Right, or they teach in school. Do they ever teach you how to build up your right brain, or that it's even important?
Yeah, no.
School is all about being on time, your linear work, multiple choice, true and false, you know, sit there and listen to the teacher, you know,
Memorize stuff.
Memorize stuff. It's so left brain that by the time you leave school, you can't do anything artistic, you know, and until you've built up your brain. So
It's part of their master plan.
I think it is.
Whoa.
That's why I'm so proud of you guys for making the Young Artist Program, because that is really building up their right brain and exposing them to a way of creating and thinking and being that's so contrary and different to how school is, that it's so necessary, because they'll be able to have creative solutions to things. They'll be able to think outside the box, heaven forbid. They'll be able to question status quo. There's so many things it does to make you a whole person, and the school system is like, you know,
Wants you to follow.
Yeah, wants you to follow it. They don't want leaders, they want followers.
So speaking of unconventional skills that, you know, artists need to have in order to be the best version that they can be of themselves, and in order to get better as an artist, is how to overcome artist block and stay inspired. They need to be able to identify when they are blocked. I think that's like a key part, is like knowing that you're experiencing artist block. It's pretty easy, but sometimes artist block can be a little bit more of like a rut. It's like knowing how to get out of a rut, how to overcome artist block and to stay inspired, whatever that means, right?
Well, I think professional artists know that an artist block is just a normal part of being an artist, and every artist goes through it multiple times. It could happen a few times a year, and that just shows you that it's
You're
just
growing.
Yeah, that you're about to have a breakthrough, or you have to take your art to the next level and you have to grow. So it just means that you've been in this place for a while and it's time to move on to the next level. So I think it's always like a good thing when it happens to me. I'm like excited, like, oh, that means I'm gonna have something new happen with my art. And that's always what happens on the other side of it. You have to know how to overcome artist block, and there's so many ways to do that, but I think the main important thing is painting no matter what. And we always tell artists to do the 100 painting challenge, where they have to create 100 small paintings just with really any materials and just be super playful and make a bunch of messes. And that always helps you, like, again, get into your right brain and just face those fears that you're making bad paintings. I find that after the 100 painting challenge, I'm able to create something really nice. So the 100 painting challenge, for people who don't know, is something that we teach a lot of artists when they experience artist block. And that's when you create 100 small paintings on paper in 3 days. Well, I think paper is the best thing because it's easy. So these aren't paintings that you have to show people or you have to be proud of. It's literally just for you to get that energy out and just experiment and play and have just like this release.
But you can sell them though, for cheap.
If they turn out cool, yeah, why not?
Yeah, I went through and filtered, like, I probably got 15 ones that I actually liked out of the 100 painting challenge, maybe 20 actually. You helped me filter them and sold like 6 or 7 of them.
Yeah, most of them will be bad paintings, but that's the cool part about it, is you just feel like
you get all the bad, you get over being worried about making a bad painting.
Yeah.
A lot of them.
Yeah, totally.
So 100 paintings in 3 days. So you do about 33 a day, 3 days in a row. And yeah, and you can use any materials. It works best to just kind of gather all your materials around you, block out like 3-4 hours, knock them out, like 10-minute paintings.
But you have to do one at a time. That's something that took me, like the first time doing it, I thought I could work on multiple at once, and that just, it doesn't work because you're too distracted and you'll spend like 1 minute on one and then like 20 minutes on another. So I think doing one at a time, really focusing all of your efforts on that one painting and then moving on to the next one. So you're redoing that process in your mind, like start to finish, creating this painting.
Another thing that I realized when I did it pretty recently was that I wished that I had like focused on just specific materials, because I did have all my art supplies there and I think it's great. It's really important that you do experiment with all of them, but sometimes I would try to do like 5 different materials, like spray paint, inks, like drawing materials, markers, you know, Caran d'Ache crayons, all in one. It just got me out of the flow. Like I feel like I didn't quite get as much of a benefit if I would have like really dove deep into just using Caran d'Ache or like Caran d'Ache and markers in one, or
when
Caran
you
d'Ache
have
markers, you know, inks, or, you know, limiting yourself a little bit in some way. Whoever is watching this and wants to try this, maybe you try doing it both ways, because maybe that's just for me, but what works for, you know, you is different than
But when you have boundaries like that, like you have just a few materials, then it actually lets you be more creative, because you could only have those materials and you're seeing, how can I use these in all the different ways?
Yeah.
Also, I just want to address something about artist block. I think there's 2 kinds of artist block: non-working artist block, and there's working artist block. Both of them, you could do the 100 painting challenge. That's always a way out, no matter what kind of artist block you have. I think it's important to realize, if you have working artist block, meaning you're in a habit of painting, you paint, but it just nothing, you don't like anything you paint, and you're sick of yourself, you're sick of the art you're doing. So maybe you have a bunch of paintings lined up and you're actively working. That kind of artist block, I think you have to keep going. You just have to keep working, even though you want to like change directions, you want to, you know, you're stuck on a piece, you don't know how to finish it. You have to keep working. There's no choice about it. If you sort of pivot, take time off, or, you know, go in a completely radical new direction, I think it sort of holds you back from the breakthrough. When you have this piece in front of you and you just don't want to finish it because you hate it so bad. In my experience, when I've pushed through and I made myself finish that piece, then on the other side of it, usually on the next painting or the painting after, is when I have a big breakthrough. So sometimes you have to just push through. That's the best way to get over a block. And I think it takes experience and practice to recognize what kind of block you're having. And then sometimes you just can't get yourself to go in the studio. You just don't know where to start. You don't know what to paint. Everything you've seen yourself paint lately you don't like, and so you just don't know what to do. And that's when you need to experiment and play and almost like reset until you get excited about something again. And that again is when the 100 painting challenge is perfect. I don't know, I think there's different kinds of artist block, and the main thing though, as long as you are painting, you will eventually get over all of it. Yeah. The worst thing you can do if you are lacking inspiration is to stop painting. That is the worst thing you can do.
Yeah, I really like how you separated it into 2 different types of blocks, or like resistance. If you've read The War of Art, then you'll know what we're talking about there. But yeah, it's like you have to sort of be able to persevere through the boredom, like, and be able to just keep going if you want to achieve mastery in anything.
That's even
like
harder.
in art.
That's,
you know?
like the more difficult one.
Yeah, because sometimes you do, like, let's face it, like you just do get bored of what you're doing sometimes. But like you said, it's like you learn the most from those paintings that are boring almost, or learning how to resolve a painting that is like a failure is, you'll learn so much more than you learned when you made a painting and it was just so easy start to finish, you know? I definitely can relate to that. And I know that happened with you, and it like sort of launched a whole style almost, like your whole entire style when you and John stopped collaborating with the painting of Daphne with the duck, I think it was, right? Yeah. So I think that was the only time I ever saw you cry over a painting. So moving on to the next skill that every artist needs to have is understanding good composition. And all of this, I mean, you are totally right. All of this, it goes under being in your right brain.
Yeah.
Like almost every single thing that is related to being a good artist can, you know, go back to, well, if you just get in your right brain, you know, you don't have that problem.
Composition, I think, is something that you feel. It's like an instinct. And so once you learn the basic, there's some rules about composition. You got to know those, and it kind of.
Some people feel composition, I will say, because I've seen some people who just don't feel composition.
You feel it by being in your right brain.
Yeah.
If you sit there and go, okay, now I have to come up with a composition. Okay, let me see. Rule of thirds. Okay, golden triangle. Okay, let me get my ruler out. Like, then
you can mess it up.
Yeah, you
And
can
you
kinda
probably
mess it up.
will mess it up.
The best thing is to know all that, have that packed in there, filed away, and you're familiar with it, because your right brain will draw from knowledge you have. And then just trust your gut and go with what feels good and what instinctually you want to do without second guessing it. I find when people sort of second guess their gut and reason themselves into another solution, because I'll ask people that have a bad composition, I'll say, well, what made you decide to put that there? And they'll say, well, because it's a moon and this is about blah, blah, blah. And the subject is looking to the moon. And I just thought it was in her line of vision. And it's like, yeah, but you put it in a bad spot. Like, it's messing up the composition. Maybe the moon, it would be more creative and dynamic if the moon was, you know, in the right spot.
Yeah, I can see the moon. It's right smack dab in the middle.
Or whatever, yeah.
Or almost touching the edge of the canvas.
Yes, yeah.
The interesting thing about composition is that it's also so mathematical. You know, they've broken down composition, studied it so much, so it can be like something that's super left brain, but it also is like right brain. And you said something that I think is really important. Yes, it is sort of left brain, but if you learn it and you internalize it, then you'll be able to draw upon it instinctually. And it's like learning any skill, like whether that's how to mix color, or like sometimes things start out as a left brain activity.
That's right.
But then through repetition and through, you know, internalization.
Once you have ownership of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It can become a right brain activity.
Yeah, it's like learning a language, learning a musical instrument, playing a sport. I mean, we just had horseback riding today in lessons, and so much of what they're telling us is left brain, like, okay, and I feel like I'm like, okay, hands even, shoulder up, outside leg, inside leg, back, okay, and I feel like I'm contorted on there, but it's like, after a while, I'm like, okay, I can feel it, okay, and I'm bending him, and it's instinctual, but you definitely feel like awkward and like a robot at first.
It's so true with sports too. I remember when I was learning how to golf, just like how the whole entire movement, because golf is such a technical sport, you know, and it's like micro movements can completely radically change the outcome, like what would happen with the whole entire swing. So, you know, whether it's like the shift of your hips or, you know, dropping your elbows.
Or a script brush and a whisker.
Exactly, yeah. So moving on from composition, last one is being able to work in layers. So what does that mean?
That could be one of the most important ones, I think, besides the
Definitely
right
brain too.
Yeah. Working in layers is just, you know, what we teach artists, and it's a better way to paint because you're letting your subject matter emerge and kind of like come through the canvas, and you're feeling your way through it, and you're not trying to immediately have that gratification of like the perfect details right away. So a lot of artists want to just do one little
square inch.
Yeah, just like little details, and
I see a lot of artists on YouTube as well, like, and you know, successful artists who have a lot of subscribers and stuff.
It can be a beautiful painting, it really can, but it's so much work and it takes so long, and it's like
it has an over-labored vibe to it. It doesn't, you can't feel the energy. It doesn't feel so
expressive.
alive.
So we think professional artists really should learn how to, like, it's really letting go. I think it's kind of a perfectionist thing when they want to finish the painting and like see every little inch coming together and knowing the outcome, like it's control.
Even, you know, modern masters always paint in layers. I don't know any accomplished master artist, past or present, that works 1 square inch at a time, applying an image to a white canvas.
The difference between seeing a painting that's like painted realistic and you're like, it's a huge painting, super realistic, and you're like, whoa, that's impressive, versus seeing a super expressive, emotional painting and be like, wow, that hits me in the gut. Like, I feel that painting, you know? And it moving you to tears. I don't think a super hyper-realistic painting moves people to tears in the same way that you can get with, you know, abstract brushstrokes and the layering of emotion, really, that goes into painting when you paint in layers. So,
like this magic that happens when you watch an artist that paints that way. I remember watching Sing Yao Sang when he was painting. He was doing a live portrait, and you watch, and it literally looks like a messy monster. You're like, where is the nose? Where are the forms? It's just gloppy, messy, thing. And then slowly with each brush stroke, you're like, oh, okay, wow, he just swiped it and a nose appeared and oh my gosh, there's a cheek. And you just see this person emerge, brushstroke after brushstroke, and he works all over, and it's not just this one spot, and you see the whole thing, and it's really magical. You are watching magic happen. Yeah, there's something profound about that. And every artist I see or videos I watch where that's how they work, working all over the piece. And if you just think about it logically, your values have to be calibrated to each other. If you start here and sort of radiate out, you're constantly having to go to that spot to calibrate your values instead of looking at your values or your color or how the movement of the composition is, or this brushstroke was really expressive over here. I want to lead the eye this way.
It's a little bit more, I would say, like scary. Like it can be more scary, especially in the beginning for people who are used to painting 1 square inch at a time. It requires a little bit more like faith and belief. Pull it together after several layers, but you can work so much more quickly that way. Like it turns, you know, painting from a labor into, you know, a joy.
Yeah, and you know, I think that whole thing, does life imitate art or art imitate life? To me, in a very abstract way that most people don't think about, this is a way that art imitates life, because, you know, life doesn't happen 1 square inch at a time in perfection.
Very true.
Life happens from a big mess of, and you can't see all the parts. Like, why did I do that? And then, but when you look back and the painting is finished, you're like, oh, that makes sense. This fit here, and that person came into my life at this time because of this, and all the mess begins to get rendered out into form, you know, and it becomes your destiny. So I think that's how life happens, and you have to persevere through the messy times and through, you know, the ugly painting times until you begin to see in clarity what the picture is.
Totally.
And perseverance.
You take all those skills, you know, you learn these different skills, how to see like an artist. Well, really, we should put right brain first. You know, how to get into your right brain, how to see like an artist, overcome artist block, understand composition and work in layers. And you filter all of those things through these different attributes that you should have in order to be a successful artist. And so just listing those out quickly, it's perseverance, being growth oriented, being humble, generous, and passionate. So you just mentioned perseverance, so that's a perfect one to start with. How does perseverance as an attribute apply to being an artist?
I think it's just what everything we've been saying is like, you have to, having an artist's block, like you have to persevere knowing that there's going to be something better on the other side. And I think it's also striving to be your best. Like perseverance is super important as an artist. You got to have it. I think it also goes with passion. Like you can't really have perseverance if you're not very passionate about what you're doing.
They go hand in hand by knowing your why and connecting with your why. So if you feel like making art is not just a hobby, a frivolous hobby, you have a why behind it. And it doesn't have to be as a profession necessarily, or it can be. You know, your why could be like, I'm going to change the world with my art. Or your why could be, I'm going to, you know, beautify spaces with my art, or I'm going to touch people in deep places with my art. And even if I only touch 3 people and I affect them, that it's worth it for me. So whatever your why is, usually it's outward in some way for other people. It's an act of service. But if you know what your why is and you're always connected to that why, you have the ability to persevere because there's steam in your engine, there's fuel behind it because you've connected with your why, and you're going to be passionate about it because it's important to you, your why, and your passion is, you know, really what drives you. Passion, I think, comes, a lot of that is really connected with letting go of guilt and letting go of unhealthy self-attitudes. So passion, you're free to have passion if you don't feel guilty about painting. And you're like, oh, it's a frivolous, guilty pleasure. And, you know, my husband doesn't really want me to, you know, spend all this money on art supplies. And, you know, it's not really serious, or it's hard to be passionate then. But if you realize, like, this is what gives me the most joy in life. And I love to paint, and I love, the challenge of it. And I love creating, and, then you have permission to be passionate. A lot of people are passionate, but they keep it under wraps. They hide it. They squelch it because they're afraid of like the retribution, or being judged. Or if they let their passion free and loose and they just go for it, then what if they find out they're no good? What if they find out they're not talented? So I think passion comes with permission, giving yourself permission to be passionate. I think that's what holds people back from being passionate.
People can become passionate.
Absolutely.
Like you can, like anyone, if you find the right thing or you ask them the right question, you get them talking about something that they love deep down.
Feeding it.
Yes,
you
but then
feed it.
At one point in that conversation, the guilt might come up, and you'll see them sort of shrink back from it.
Totally. Especially if you say something like, "Oh, you seem pretty passionate about that." Well, I mean, it's just a hobby. I'm kind of,
Main distinction is sort of like we've talked about talent and people thinking that they need to be talented. Two different types of people in this world. There are people who believe that you're born a certain way, and there are people who believe that you can become anything that you want. So yeah, there's two different types of people in this world. There's people who believe they can do anything that they set their minds to. They can grow and become anything, obviously within reason. And then there are people who believe that you're born a certain way. You're born talented, you're born smart, you're born dumb, you're born, limited. It's like limited versus growth mindset.
You know what I think? I think both are true. People can be born a certain way, but they can learn. Like, you need to have that growth mentality no matter what, that you can become anything. And sometimes you're born a certain way, but you can learn to be another way.
I totally agree. I do think like that the main distinction is that some people believe that they just can't be something because they were born that way. I personally do believe that some people are born more athletic than others.
Yeah, exactly.
Some people are born to be football players.
Yeah.
Pro soccer players.
Yeah.
Who are just born with those natural athletic abilities. None of them would be that if they didn't grow into that which you were given at the same time.
I forget his name, but there was a point guard was in the NBA for Charlotte.
Stephen Curry. Oh, no.
And he was 5'3".
Oh, it's the guy who could dunk. What is his name?
And he was
so short.
And he's one of the best point guards. When he was born, I guarantee you he was not born to be an NBA player.
Yeah.
He worked for it and he wanted it.
Yeah, that's where perseverance comes
with
in.
Passion.
Yeah, he was passionate about it.
Growth oriented.
Exactly.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah, and so honestly, this isn't just attributes for someone to be a good artist. They're attributes for someone to be successful at anything.
This is just life talk.
Like, how can you be a freaking awesome person?
Growth oriented. To me, what I always tell myself is, Ellie, are you committed to better? Like, whenever I fall short anywhere, I make a mistake, I mess up, I don't stay in that too long, and I don't get all like upset with myself and whatever. I just go, okay, but are you committed to better? And the answer is yes, I am committed to better. Okay, if you're going to be better, what do you need to do? What adjustments do you need to make? How do you need to shift or change?
What lies are you telling yourself, or are you believing?
And so many things. Sometimes it's just, habits or thought processes. There's so many things that can contribute to a mistake or falling short, and we're all going to fall short. And I think what holds a lot of people back from a lot of these things is they have a very unhealthy, unrealistic self-view. They think that they should already have arrived. They need to be perfect. They're very like performance oriented. If I do good, then I'll deserve that. And or something like that. There's just this mindset that they have unrealistic, unhealthy expectations. And the truth is, that's why I say all the time to you guys, we're just a bunch of boobs. Like, you fail your way to success. You make all kinds of mistakes. I blow it all the time, constantly. But because we are committed to better and we're growth oriented, I can learn, I can change, I can adapt, I can always do better. Tomorrow is a new day. And if that's your mentality constantly, you're not going to get down on yourself. Yeah. You're not going to hold resentment towards yourself. You're not going to, you're going to have hope, and you will constantly be in this like life cycle of getting better and better at what you do, making fewer and fewer mistakes. And then as you get to different levels, you still make mistakes. They're just at different levels. That's why they say you fail your way to success, because you do.
And which I think it goes perfect into the next point of being humble. For one thing, people do not like arrogant artists who think they're just the best and they arrive. And yeah, no one likes talking to those artists. I've met them too, and it's just, you don't want to be around that.
False humility to be like, well, I'm not very good. I mean, I just started. I don't know.
That's annoying too.
That's annoying too.
Yeah.
Just say, yeah, thank you. I like my painting too. So happy with how it turned out. Thank you for recognizing that. That feels good. That's like humble.
And knowing that you're always going to get better. Like you have to, like knowing you're good, but then not letting those bad paintings affect you, not letting the good paintings affect you, and just like keep going.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't mean don't get excited when you make a good painting. Like, that's great. But don't let it be like, like the feedback from it. Don't let it like put you on this high horse or, you know, in this ivory tower where you now have arrived. And
that is a very good point, Jake, that there's a lot of artists that that's that performance mentality, that perform based on feedback. They're afraid to post because they're afraid of the feedback they're going to get. If they get negative feedback, they can't paint for a month. Or they get positive feedback, they only want to paint to keep getting positive feedback.
So there's like pressure.
And they'll only paint what the audience wants to see. And all of that, it's like true humility is you shouldn't care what other people think. Maybe you care a little bit, that's natural, but not to the point where it's going to affect your actions. Your actions should not be affected by other people's opinions. You do what you want to do, and where you are getting the results that you want. Feedback's good. You can kind of filter through what resonates with you, what's helpful, what critique is always great. But it takes humility to do that. And true humility, I think, comes from realizing that, one, there's this big epic story happening, and you aren't the only one that's the star of the show. You know, you are the star of the show, but so are you, so are you, so are you, right? We're all sort of play our part in that big epic story. There's something really big going on that we get to be a part of, but it's bigger than us. It's way bigger than us, you know, but we do get to play a part.
The last attribute that artists need to have is generosity. And I think there are so many different ways that you could interpret generosity, you know, so what do you guys believe is the correct interpretation, if any?
I don't know. I think of a lot of things.
Yeah, I
think of vulnerability is generous. Being willing to share your heart with others and being judged for it. That's extremely generous and courageous. I think generosity is being generous with paint.
I was just thinking that. That's the main thing I was thinking. Like, if you want to be successful, don't be in that lack mentality that there's not going to be enough, and you're being stingy with your materials and like who you're going to sell it to for how much or blah, blah, blah. Like, you just use all your paint and have fun with it and like expect that you're going to sell it. Or people are afraid to paint big because they're worried about it taking up space, or they spend all this money and then what's going to happen? It's just going to sit there.
People also tend to be stingy with their successes. Have you noticed that? Like, I'll work with students that'll have this like breakthrough painting. It means, actually, I've even done this.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, you have this breakthrough piece. It means so much to you, so you don't want to let it go. Deep down, it comes from lack mentality, where you feel like, I'm not going to have another breakthrough. I have to hang on to this one because I won't have any other breakthroughs or any other successes. So your most successful paintings, the ones you feel the best about, you should be willing to let go immediately. Like, sell, sell, sell. Let somebody enjoy it. Let somebody have it. And I think generosity also, I think of artists should be generous in their praise of others. Like, a lot of out of insecurity and fear and lack, artists tend to be and lack of humility, they tend to be competitive with other artists and have this fear that if that artist gets ahead of me or paints better than me and I'm not measuring up, then I won't ever have enough and I'll lose out. A generous artist where you will just fly, you'll skyrocket in every way, if you're generous and lavish in your praise and encouragement to other artists. Celebrate when they celebrate. When they have big sales, be genuinely happy for them. When they have breakthroughs, be genuinely happy for them. If they post something, tell them exactly what you love about it. Yeah, and that's something I love about our social media and our platform. So if you're listening and you're not on there, you need to go on there. The art club community is so special because I see artists all the time genuinely encouraging and generous in their praise, and they'll sit there and write like a paragraph out of exactly like what they love about their painting and how it made them feel. So that type of generosity, it'll return to you. Grow so much from that, and you'll always have people in your life that encourage you. I think of so many things about generosity, but
it's abundance, you know. It's like you said, it's not having that lack. It's being abundant in all ways, you know. So that's it. I'm just kidding. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Light Movement Show. If you did, be generous, share it with another artist. You know, make sure you persevere through that artist block, persevere through, you know, maybe a little bit of laziness of hitting that share button. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, share it with another artist who you think this could really help them, because you never know when you're going to change someone's life. So we hope you enjoyed this episode of the Light Movement Show. If you haven't yet, hit the like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next episode.